Okay, good morning everyone, and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday morning as we are back in action, back to our classes as we were off for the last week. We just came back last night from our Chesed mission to Israel, and I must say, my friends, it was a life-changing, very powerful experience. A lot of people told me I have to go on this trip, people that have done it over the last month, and I thought, okay, it's probably very moving. But I must say, we just got back last night after spending 6 days in the land of Israel, and it was the most life-changing experience that I ever had in my life. And I'm very appreciative for those that, first of all, that came, those that joined us, those that didn't join. Thank you so much for those that supported us with, whether it was financially or by sending letters or by sending different articles of clothing for the soldiers, for packages, etc., etc. Today's class I actually want to dedicate to just summarizing what we experienced over the last week. Of course, it's going to be impossible to summarize 6 days in 1 hour, but I'm going to try to just give a little bit of some of the ideas, some of the things that we experienced, to give you a little flavor, a little taste of this life-changing experience that we did in Eretz Israel. So we landed Wednesday morning. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihye baro. We landed Wednesday morning in Israel. And of course, the second you land, already you could feel a certain atmosphere of just mourning. There's no music in the airport. It's empty. We landed at 6 in the morning, sunrise, but it was just, there was a certain heaviness in the air, and as you walk down that ramp from the gates down to the border patrol in the airport, the whole thing was lined up on both sides, hostages. So you're landing and you're walking into this, you understand? And as we get down, we get out of the airport, we enter our bus. Of course, the whole time we had with us 2 armed guards everywhere we went. It was a very safe trip. And honestly, it was safe regardless. We really didn't feel anything. There were no sirens when we were there, partially because it was already a ceasefire a day or two into when we landed on Wednesday. The ceasefire, I think, was Friday night. That's when they returned the first hostages. So the second half of our trip, there was no sirens for sure because of the ceasefire. I mean, today you don't know for sure, right, with these animals. But the first half of the trip, there were no sirens either. And we felt very safe. But either way, we had 2 armed guards. We had an armed guide, and we had the bus driver who was also armed at all times. And the first stop we went to was in Bet Shemesh. We went to Bet Shemesh, and we went to pay respects to a family who lost their son in the army. And we walked in. It was maybe 8, 9 in the morning, and the mother was sitting there, just hysterical, crying, unimaginable pain, sitting there with her mom, the grandma of the boy, the soldier, the sister, the brother, the father was outside, and we just sat down. What do you say? What do you say? What is there to say? This lady was just, beyond herself. She actually had 2 sons in the army, and the rule is that when one of them unfortunately dies, so the other one comes home. They would never want a mother to have to go through that twice. So his brother was also there from the army, and we just sat, and she was just sharing what kind of special boy he was. This is how we started our day. This is how we started our Wednesday. And what do you tell a mother? What could you say? There's literally nothing you can say that would make sense, that would make it okay, that would justify anything. Anything that you would say would be just silly or dumb. And really, we take our cue from Aharon. Vayidom Aharon. Aharon was silent. Sometimes in life you just sit, and she looked up at us. She noticed that we were all a little bit not Israeli. She said, "Where are you all from?" So we explained, we said we're from America. And we just landed actually an hour ago, and we came for 5 days just to show the people of Israel, just to show you that we're thinking about you, that you're in our thoughts and our prayers, that it also hurts us, and that we're sharing in your pain, and we're sorry for what you're going through. And they were so moved. They were so appreciative from the fact that we just literally picked up everything, our families, our jobs, just to do what? We're not doctors, we're not healers, we're not miracle workers, we can't bring them back from the dead, but we could say thank you. we could say thank you. And this was the repeated theme again and again and again. Wherever we went, all we needed to do was really just show them that we're here to support you, and we're all the way across the Atlantic, but we are thinking about you. And it was so comforting for them to know that this war wasn't just for, Israelis. It was for every Jew, everywhere in the world. And then we showed them the letters that the children wrote in school, and they were so moved. They started reading the letters in English and in Hebrew, and she's like, she wanted to keep all of the letters. I told her, we have a lot of other, other stops on the itinerary, so she kept a couple of the letters. But it was just, to them, it was just so nice to see that there were people out there that cared, that were part of this. And this is just, 1 hour into the trip, and it was already enough to come just for this, to see. And as we left, the tour guide said, you guys are very, shaken by this, but you should know this is just another Wednesday morning in Israel. This is just another day of a soldier who died. This is unfortunately, overseas, what are we scared of here? Over here, and this is an important point, by the way, not belittling. I forgot which person told us, maybe it'll come to my mind later, but one of the people that we met told us, there are 3 different wars going on. In Israel, there's the war, right? And you're not fighting that war in America. But in America, you're fighting a different war. You're fighting the anti-Semitic war. In Israel, no one's afraid to wear a kippah. Everyone's proud to wear a kippah, Israeli flag, tzitzit. There's no anti-Semitism. But that's a war, that's a fight that we have here, that we can fight here. And their message to us again and again, go back. Make sure you're proud. Make sure you're ge'im. Make sure that there's pride in being a Jew. Show everyone, go around, spread what you saw here. And that's something that we can fight here in America. We don't have deaths here as far as the war is concerned. Once in a while there's anti-Semitic attack, there's a death. But this is for them, this was an average Wednesday. Just another person who was killed in battle. And from here we went to Jerusalem. We went down to the United Hatzalah headquarters where we met with Eli Beer, who started this United Hatzalah in Israel. Basically, he had a brilliant idea many years ago where he realized that the response time to get to certain places in Israel was very long because the streets are very narrow and tight as it is, and you can't get your ambulance truck. So he started what's called the ambu-cycle, which was an ambulance on a motorcycle, where they could, maneuver and squeeze through the different opposing traffic and different cars. And their response time, he told us, their response time is 90 seconds. Now, usually you go to United Hatzalah, you get a tour of what they do, and they save people's lives from heart attacks. But here in United Hatzalah today, at least when we went on Wednesday, he shared with us his October 7th experience and how there were, individuals on United Hatzalah that went down there that were able to, on their own level, try to, stop whatever terrorists there were, to try to save people's lives. Unfortunately, there were paramedics from United Hatzalah that were killed on October 7th. And then we heard, their story and their perspective on this war, and how they, had their input. And again, another theme, just thoughts that are coming to my mind, is that the real heroes of this war is not the government, it's not the IDF. The real heroes are the individuals. Individuals is what saved October 7th. The army is very methodical and very calculated. There's a procedure in everything that they do. There's protocol. October 7th, the response time for the army was very long. And again, from some of the stories, you'll see that it took them a long time to get there. But the heroes were the individuals that stood up, that had guns. I think of what would have happened if I was there. If I was living in one of these places and there was terrorists coming in, I would run with my family, lock myself in, close the door. But you realize that if everyone did that, then the casualties, the death toll would have been much higher. It was only because, people put their families in, and then the men went out and they fought. They fought with their own pistols, with their own handguns, to try to delay whatever terrorists were coming. And again, this is something that you're going to see again and again and again that we found out throughout our trip. Finally, after Hatzalah, and again, I'm sorry that I'm rushing, but there's a lot to cover, and we don't have forever. We don't have a lot of time. Then we continued to Jerusalem. We went to, we did a packaging for soldiers where we got to make boxes of different essentials that they needed. The things that you're sending from here, yeah, you're sending it there. you're sending a bunch of warmers and gloves and hats and helmets and whatever. We were packaging those boxes in Israel. And then after that, we went to a family's home where we were able to do a challah bake. She sends every Friday, especially now, she's sending over 200 chalot to soldiers, perfect size chalot to fulfill the mitzvah. We made the challahs with her. We made the bracha. We made the chalot. We packaged them. We went afterwards to make tzitzit for soldiers. So this was all on day one. Okay, it was again just a lot. And then day one, it was very tired. We went back to the hotel. We checked in, and then when we were in this challah baking place in the house of a very beautiful family from actually a Dir Aliyah from America. So he showed us a story of a soldier who was in Gaza, and he came home on what was it, Wednesday night or Tuesday night to surprise his wife that he was coming home for Shabbat. And she asked him in the beginning of the week, "Are you going to be home for Shabbat?" And he told her no. And then last second, they told him that he would be coming. So he decided to surprise his wife. So he calls his wife and he tells her, it was midnight. He calls his wife, he tells her, "Listen, my friend's going to come pick up something from the house. Could you please give it to him?" So finally, when he was outside, he calls his wife, he said, "Hey, my friend's outside, if you could please go down." And she comes, she opens the door, and who does she see? She sees her husband. And the tears, the joy, the emotions that were caught on this, video were just beyond. And the beautiful thing was that this community, this small community where we baked the challah in, they were gonna put up and host this chayal, this soldier, and his wife and his few kids in the hotel that we were staying in for Shabbat. So on Shabbat, when we were in the hotel, we saw this soldier, this chayal. We brought him over to our table. We had a great time. He shared with us some stories, very moving stories, and this was all one day, one Wednesday. Okay, Thursday, and again, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to uncover. Thursday, we went down to the south. We met a lady who owned a nursery for plants. She originally was one of the people that had a field, many acres out in Gush Katif before it was given back to Palestine. She was evacuated there with many people. She remembers it like it was yesterday. Eventually, she came down to this area where the government gave her another lease on a piece of land to compensate her for her loss in Gush Katif. And here she has her business where she makes plants, all the different flowers and trees and different beautiful plantings that they have all over parks and people's homes in Israel. So she's a big supplier for all of that. But she was showing us all these rows of burned produce, of trees that couldn't be harvested on time, that weren't being planted on time, of just lost income because of the war. All of her, most of her employees were either Thai, they ran away to Thailand, or back to Gaza, Arabs. And that's just like another, perspective of, we don't think of the average family in Israel, that they also have, besides for the war and sending money to help people fight, there's actual families, lives, people that need to eat. They need to eat. They don't live, they don't have they don't have savings. They live month to month. And, 2 months here almost, that there's just no income, no parnasa. And she's one story of many, many stories. She showed us little scraplings of metal that fell from the Iron Dome or from the rockets that were shot in from Gaza. She showed us pieces of metal just all over her fields. When this is a brilliant thing. I don't know if you guys realize the brilliancy of the Iron Dome. When the Iron Dome shoots down a missile, it doesn't only shoot it down. I mean, it's one thing to chase it down and shoot it and explode in the air. But what else it does is it calculates where it wants to explode it, where it wants to shoot it down, over which area. Because if you shoot it over an area that's populated, all of those scraplings fall onto people, onto homes, onto buildings. The Iron Dome has to calculate to precisely attack it over an empty area. So fields like hers were ruined because of this. And so we spent just an hour there listening to her story, trying to, donate our time a little bit to help her do what we can to just show a little bit, again, support for the average families in these areas. Afterwards, we went to Ofakim. Okay, Ofakim is where the famous story of Rachel that you guys heard. Remember Rachel, the lady that she had five terrorists in her house, and she was feeding them, and she was very polite to them. Remember that story, Rachel, that you for sure saw? That was in Ofakim. We actually had a meeting with her. We were supposed to meet her, but at the last second, this was the day before the hostages were supposed to be released, and for whatever reason, we couldn't meet with her. But this was the city of Ofakim. She was in that city. We met with the mayor of Ofakim, Itzik Danino, and he told us, the story of October 7th as a mayor of a city of Ofakim, which is very, very close to the border, south. How on the morning of, he's very close to generals and the chief of staff. So when there were rockets and there were sirens, so he called the army. He called one of the heads in the army. He said, okay, thank you for notifying us. Hold on, we'll get to you soon. Half hour later, there was no signs of tanks, no relief, no aid, nothing. And he called again. And the guy said, okay, hang tight, don't worry, we're doing what we can. 4 p.m., that's 12 hours later. 12 hours later, there was still no help. And again, he was sharing with us stories of individuals, of people that came, that they stood, that they were watching, that they tried to do whatever they can to limit. You think about the miracle. I mean, it's a very big loss. How many people died on October 7th? But really, if you think about it, how many terrorists came in? To the amount that should have died, should have been much more. It should have been much more that died on October 7th. But it was again because of heroes, individuals that just stood up with their guns, doing what they can to limit the access of the terrorists, to hold them off, to delay as much as they could. And then he told us the story of Rachel, how the SWAT team got in to Ofakim, and the scary thing is there's terrorists hiding in the city. It took them days just to clear it out from terrorists, to go from house to house to make sure no one was hiding in closets, in garages or wherever. And this lady Rachel, and how she was hinting with signs to the SWAT team, she was putting her hand like this to show them 5 people are here in my house, and she was communicating with SWAT outside as the hostages eating out of her fridge right there next to her. And that was the mayor of Ofakim. We heard that story from him, and again, his perspective as a mayor of October 7th. We afterwards went to Ashkelon. Okay, now listen, in Ashkelon, we went to a soldier he's one of 4 people that has the following job. Okay, only 4 people have this. Okay, very, very specific, difficult job. His job, you ready? His job is whenever, God forbid, a soldier is killed in the army, someone has to notify the parents, right? That's him. That's what he does. He's the one that has to take that walk all the way to the door, knock on the door, and with his truck. And when parents see a truck pull into their driveway, they know what that truck is there to tell them. So that's his job. There's 4 people that do this job. 3 are women. He's the only man. Just to show you the sensitivity of this human being, how sensitive he must be to be a man and do this job, that no one else could do it except for him and then three ladies. And we sat with him. He told us again, just in general, how he goes about doing things like this. He told us that the day before Simchat Torah, there was he had an Arab worker doing renovation in his home. And the day before Simchat Torah, the Arab told him that he's not going to come. He's not going to come tomorrow because he has a dentist appointment. A dentist appointment. This is an Arab worker for him from Gaza. Every day he would come in from Gaza. And of course, he said the next day he didn't show up, but not because of the dentist appointment. So the Arabs knew. The Arabs, the regular workers that came in, they knew, and many of them they came in every day to work in Israel, but they had very detailed drawings of houses and where things were and how many people and how many guns, and so much of the help came from the average Arab people that came to work in Israel that they went back to Hamas to relay the information. And one of them is this guy who was telling us his regular guy renovating his home. And he knew he's not going to be coming in tomorrow. They all knew, many of them knew what was coming. As he's telling us his story and many different stories, a tank pulls into the driveway, army truck pulls into the driveway, 2 soldiers come, and they just walk into the house, they open the fridge, they're eating out of his fridge, they're taking a drink, and he explained, this general, I forget his name, I'll get his name, but he explained to us that his house, many soldiers, they stop in just to get a quick drink or refuel before they continue back to their base. In between the Gaza and their base, they stop by his house. Okay, it's like, like the Rebbe, where they all just come in just to sometimes even just sleep for a few hours, just to get something to eat. His house is stocked nonstop for soldiers like these to just come in and grab whatever they like, just to put their head down for a few minutes. So here we just saw two soldiers who just came out of Gaza. They were dusty and everything. They just came out of Gaza. So we sat them down and we asked them to share with us, some of their experiences. And then they pulled out of their, they took us to the truck. They showed us these shells of tank missiles. When a tank shoots a missile, it leaves a shell. Now a shell of a bullet is very small, but a missile shell is very big. They had in the truck a bunch of shells that they kept with them as souvenirs to give out. So they gave us each a shell. So I brought one home. Okay, I have it here. I didn't bring it to shul. I'll show it to you maybe another time. But I have with me a shell. Okay, the leftover of a missile. I had to wash it for gunpowder and everything. But I have a shell with me, and it's just amazing to see people that are actually in there shooting these things, fighting this fight. And then they told us that they said something very interesting. A lot of these barbecues and whatever, they're being hosted for soldiers, but a lot of the soldiers that are actually deep in Gaza are not getting any of that. They're not getting barbecues. No Chabad rabbi is going with a barbecue truck into Gaza. Yeah, who's getting the barbecue? The people on the border. So he told us, we're not getting all of these things. So a few of the guys came to me, a few people on the trip. They're like, Rabbi, we want to get this guy's and his unit. Let's hook them up with a good dinner. He showed us a video of where they sleep, of what they sleep on, of what their base looks like, of their shower, of what they eat, the food. It's like worse than airline food, okay? And that's saying a lot, okay? You wouldn't touch this food with a 10-foot pole. This is what they're eating every day. So they came to me like, Rabbi, we want to give them a good meal. So they got together, they got a couple $1,000, $1,000 or whatever it was, $1,500. And we gave it to the guy. We said, listen, you have 50 guys in your unit. Get him a shawarma, get him fries, a soda. Here's the money. And however you think it's the best way to get it to you, we can't Uber Eats it to you guys, but you figure it out. Here's the money and thank you. And this is money from, again, people here that have given me money to send there, to help there. And the next day he sends us a video of a bunch of soldiers standing there with a shawarma, eating. My friends, it's not the food. Again, it's not the food. It's the fact that they realize that there's people out there that care about them. And they were so appreciative. They were so moved. Just from little acts of sentiment like these. Then we went, and then this fellow, this soldier, whose job it is to go and inform families or to hospitals. So he gave us, he connected us with a hospital in Tel Aviv that eventually we went to on Sunday, and I'll tell you that in a few minutes. Okay, so just put that on the back burner. Again, a lot more, but we're just quickly moving on to Friday. On Friday, we went to Bet Shemesh. Was it Bet Shemesh? I forget the names already. But we went to another city where we went to pay respects to, again, an American family that they lost their soldier, their son in the army. And, again, nothing to say. There's nothing to say, but we sat, we listened, feeling the pain of just a family that did Aliyah and their son is fighting, and their message to us was, we have to come to Israel. We have to make Aliyah. We have to come, and this is the beginning of Mekabetz Nitchei Amo Yisrael. After that, we went to the Leonardo Hotel. Okay, so let me tell you about this hotel. This is a hotel in Yerushalayim, but for us, the reason we went there is because right now this hotel is hosting an entire village, a yishuv of Kfar Maimon. Okay, so there's a moshav all the way in the south called Kfar Maimon. It's one of the more religious yishuvim, and this whole family is displaced. They cannot stay in their town. They had to relocate. They're staying in the Leonardo Hotel. Around 150 families. 99% of them are in this hotel, and they're staying there Hopefully they'll be able to go back home January 1st is the plan. They don't know exactly, but they're staying in this hotel. And the reason they can't stay where they come from is because the noise of the rockets, of everything, is just so loud. Even now, it's just too much for the children. So they're all displaced. So my friends, realize how many different people are being affected in this war. There's soldiers, there's just families, there's farmers, okay? There's just people day to day. So many are affected. The whole country is feeling it. We went to the hotel, we tried to, give them just some toys, some prizes, some candy. Friday, lift their spirits. There was also another group that was hosting a carnival that day. So in tandem, we worked together to try to put a smile on these children's faces. And then we decided that we're going to visit the Kfar on Sunday. So we took down the information, and then on Sunday we were going to go visit this yishuv in the south. Anyways, we were planning on going to the south for something else, and we decided to add this to the itinerary, and I'll tell you in a minute. Quickly, Motzei Shabbat, then there was Shabbat, where there's a whole experience. They had in the hotel a group from Australia, Rabbi Wolf and his community. They as well, like we had our organization there, they also hosted in this hotel for Shabbat in the David Citadel. They were hosting I think a dozen families of soldiers, of victims that they put up in the hotel for Shabbat, called Iron Hugs, where they sat with them for the entire Shabbat, telling stories, listening to stories. So we as well joined them. We shared some l'chaims with them. Different groups. This is just one, the Australia group. There's another one of a few guys from 5 towns that got together to put up people in hotels. So really just so much chesed going on. So much unity. We came, we felt great, our group is doing, and there were so many groups, and a little bit, you could start, doing this competition game in your head where you're saying, my group's better than their group and their group is better than that group. That's all toxic. That all defeats the purpose. No one's better than nobody. Everyone's just doing, we need all. We need all. I think that was the theme. Beyachad nenatzeach. And we got to get rid of that competition mentality. Anyways, that was Shabbat. There's a lot more on Shabbat. We went to Seudah Shlishit. We went, Rabbi Bragimov, who was leading the trip, we went to his brother-in-law's house, who lives in a place called Abu something. Okay, where you have a view of Har HaBayit, like directly. It's a wild place, little area before the Green Line. It's not in the. It's not over the Green Line. It's not in Yehuda veShomron. It's not in the West Bank. I forget what it's called. Sorry. So, anyways, we went there and we spoke to him and his wife, and they told us their story of doing Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, which is a beautiful story. Motzei Shabbat. Continuing quickly, we don't have a lot of time. Motzei Shabbat. We went to Kever Rachel. We went to Me'arat HaMachpelah. Okay, so we get to Me'arat HaMachpelah, which is always a winner, a very moving experience where the avot are buried with the imahot. We prayed there. It was empty. We actually got there an hour before they closed at 9 p.m. So we were able to go, and we saw people dancing outside and singing, and little kids. There's still Jews that live in Hebron. So we went there. We saw the children singing and doing Havdalah. And then we went inside, we prayed. We left Me'arat HaMachpelah, we went to Kever Rachel, which is where Rachel Imenu was buried, and it was a very appropriate parasha to go, because it was the parasha of Rachel and Leah, and the I wouldn't call it a conflict, but whatever they had going on between them with Yaakov and the signs and everything. So, it's the right parasha to go, if there's any. So we went to Kever Rachel, and always, again, moving experiences. We took with us, okay, just a little nice caveat. If you guys remember, we had here in the synagogue 1 year ago the Mekaiten family who moved from Israel to America for 1 year. Okay, so Matan Mekaiten, his wife Hadas, and their kids, they brought them all here. A beautiful Temani family. Matan he was a soldier. When he finished his duty, he continued into medicine, into a very complicated surgery for cancer. So he came for 1 year to America to study in Sloan as a fellowship, to study this very difficult, complicated procedure of surgery for removing a certain type of cancer, and to take this back with him to Israel. So for 1 year, we had this holy, beautiful, special family, the Mekaitens, staying here with us in the synagogue, praying with us every day, and what a special family. So anyways, after the year, they moved back to Israel. And just now, on October 7th, her husband was called back to serve, and he was so excited to serve. Actually, on October 7th, he saw his neighbors getting called one by one, and he wasn't getting called, and it hurt him that he couldn't go and serve for the army. For Am Yisrael, he wanted to serve for his people. And finally, when the call came, he was so excited to go and serve, Again, just what mentality they have. Here we're like, if I don't know, I try to think, if I was called, I would pray they wouldn't call me. I would turn my phone off. But he was looking at his phone, waiting for them to call him, so that he could go and serve his country, serve his people. Very special family. And his wife told us a story on the bus, a very beautiful story, that she said her husband comes home every few weeks, and every time he comes, he never shares anything. He's actually a very niche unit, mission, very special type of mission that they do, and he can't really share much, but she said one Shabbat he came home and he shared one story, and she shared with us the story that her husband told her. One time they were going in, and then after they went in, one of the soldiers turned to him and he said, Matan, what were the 3 things that every Jew has to say before fighting? And he said, every Jew has to say, Shema Yisrael, to accept the yoke of heaven. They have to say, Vidui, Anna, to do tshuva. And then they say, I think, what was the third one? Berchot HaShachar, if I'm not mistaken, the blessings of the morning. And the soldier told him, he said, I wish I could say them. I don't know by heart. I wish I could just say Berchot HaShachar. And you saw the pain, he said, the pain of this one guy who was secular, because he wanted to just connect to Hashem. He said, and all of a sudden, as the soldier said this, they heard this like huge explosion in the sand, dirt flying all over. Everyone went to get cover. And after a minute, they got up and they saw this missile landed inches away from them. And for unexplainable reason, the missile did not explode. Just sitting right there unexploded next to them. And he said this was just seconds after this Jew was saying, I wish I could, accept the yoke of heaven. I wish I could say Berchot HaShachar. So this is just a beautiful story, again, that one of many. And then actually she said that there's another soldier that had the same exact experience in a different unit. Similar story. I mean, the stories that are coming out, one after the other, miracle after miracle. Sunday, we went to Kfar Maimon, okay? And this is where, it gets really, this was the best day, okay? We went to Kfar Maimon, and remember the village, the yishuv that was displaced in the Leonardo. So this is that yishuv. We went to the city, empty yishuv, nothing there. First we met with one of the farmers that's actually now a soldier. He's 50 years old. He doesn't have to go, but on the morning of October 7th, he says, I have a choice to make. I could stay here farming. He's 50 years old. He's old enough to not have to even go back for reserves. But he decided he wants to go and protect his people. And so he has a few greenhouses where he plants cherry tomatoes, and he showed us, a few of them, just destroyed, ruined from not being harvested on time. 50 days extra than it should be planted, it's going to die. They got overcooked, and the amount of money that this guy was losing. So we decided we want to, give him a little bit of support. So we spent an hour there, just cutting cherry tomatoes, the ones that were ripe. And then buying them off of him. Because again, you could cut them, but then what? Who's buying them right now? So we cut them and then we bought them off of him. And we took them with us the next day. I'll tell you Monday what we did with them. But then this guy, who was again just in tears, moved, appreciative, so appreciative that we were doing this. We didn't owe it to him. We didn't know him. But this is what we're here to do. We just went around showing people of Israel that Beyachad Nenatzeach, you're not alone. We are here with you. We went afterwards, we continued our drive in this little kfar. He showed us a crazy miracle. On the morning of October 7th, there were 60 terrorists coming from Gaza. And he showed us on the other side of the little hill right there, we could see it from where we were sitting in the bus. He showed us 60 terrorists approaching. And these men stood there, a handful of guys, 5-10 guys, just with guns. They're not soldiers. They're just guys with pistols. And they stood there trying to hold off as much as they can these terrorists. He said, and out of nowhere, a helicopter came, a helicopter with 50 soldiers. landed in the middle of the field and was able to wipe out every one of those terrorists. When the last soldier evacuated the helicopter, a RPG was shot and the whole helicopter was destroyed to bits and pieces. We saw right where the helicopter was, but no one was killed. Not one soldier died in that altercation. They were able to kill every one of the terrorists. Not one of them died. A huge miracle, because it wasn't a helicopter that the IDF sent. Remember, if you remember in the beginning, I said the IDF did not send soldiers. They were very slow and methodical. There's a whole protocol. This is just one guy who had a helicopter. He threw in a bunch of his friends. Guys, let's go. Let's save who we can. And for some reason, that was where they picked to stop. And there happened to be a place with a lot of terrorists. Again, 150 families. How much worse the damage could have been. These 10 guys would not have been able to hold off those 60 terrorists. But, they got the help. They got, they're so appreciative of the Yad Hashem, the hand of God that was constantly appearing again and again and again. We then went into the shul of this moshav. There's only one shul, and it's, I mean, maybe there are other ones, but this is the main shul. And we walked in. He told us that it was closed since October 7th. Nobody walked into the shul. We saw the books still open, machzorim from Sukkot, still on the desks, on the shtenders, on the tables, filled with dust from over the last 50 days, the smoke, the missiles and everything. And we found on the floor wrappers from Simchat Torah candy bags from the night before. We sat there, we prayed mincha. The shul, no one prayed there for 50 days. And we came in, we prayed in that shul. I asked the guy, after he shared with us a little bit of the story, I asked him if did they do dancing that day of Simchat Torah? He said they did dancing the night before, but that morning they did not dance. So I asked him if it was okay with him. If the group that was there, a few other people from another group joined our bus that day. So maybe we were 30 people. So I asked him, is it okay if we do Simchat Torah right now to make up for the Simchat Torah that they missed in this Kfar Maimun? The man was in tears. He couldn't believe it. He had to find his key because they moved all the shtenders around. So he looked through them. He finally found his key. He was the Gabai. He opened the ark. We took out the Torahs. The Torah still had on it the necklace that said Simchat Torah. They still had on it the necklace that said Zot HaBeracha, the last prasha of the year that we read back on that day. Bereshit for Shabbat Mincha. They didn't use it that day. They didn't use the Torahs. We took the Torahs, we sang, we danced, we did a mini Hakafot, a mini Simchat Torah for those members of that Yishuv that couldn't do it on that day. We danced, we sang, we cried. We tried to make it Bezrat Hashem, a segula, a mazal, an omen, that everyone should come back soon to that Yishuv. They were beyond moved by tears, my friends. I mean, what a moving experience that was, to be able to sit and stand and cry and to do a mini Simchat Torah. And we said Kaddish, and then we went to Kibbutz Be'eri. Kibbutz Be'eri, as you know, is where they plowed through with their tractors on October 7th. It's the closest kibbutz to Gaza. It's just right there. Kibbutz Be'eri is where they got the most damage. And we actually were going not to the kibbutz, we were going to outside of the kibbutz where we were going to host a barbecue for soldiers. And there's a base right there where we're going to do a barbecue. When the soldiers leave Gaza, they come, they grab a nice barbecue, something to eat, something to drink, some music. We were hosting a barbecue that day. Again, sponsored by people here listening to these classes, people from the synagogue, from the community over here. And we had an hour where the barbecue wasn't going to start for another hour. So we said, you know what, let's try to get into Be'eri. By the hand of God, by a miracle, somehow, one of the security guards that was not letting anyone into the kibbutz, somehow he said yes, for some reason. And he took us into Be'eri. And actually, he wasn't just a security guard. He is a resident of Be'eri. So he personally knows the story. He knows people in Be'eri. He lives in Be'eri. For him, this is not a museum. This is not history. This is his town. This is his people. And he walked us all the way to the corner, to the gate where they smashed through with the tractor. He showed us the dirt, the trail on the floor that the tractor made. He showed us house after house, my friends, that you can't imagine. You cannot imagine. It's like scenes from Auschwitz. Scenes from Auschwitz. Houses burned from top to bottom. Not one, not two. Dozens of houses burned. Bullets through the doors. He showed us how there was, story after story of people that he knows. This guy, he tried holding the door from the inside, blocking them from coming in until they shot him. This one, he was able to hold it, but they burned the house till they all died from smoke. Just, horror story after horror story. Things that are unimaginable, things beyond, that are, again, from a fiction movie that you would read, that you would watch. This is something that was real life. And again, these were old people. A lot of them were Arabs that worked in these houses. They knew exactly where the money was. They came in, they took it, they had a plan, they knew where to go, how to go, from where to enter. I mean, my friends, just beyond what we saw that day, just seeing it was just more than could handle. And we got there after they cleared the body parts, after they cleaned up the blood. But we walked in, we were stepping on ashes, we were stepping on just burned homes, people's lives, that there's, one story he showed us of a family that they escaped to the safe room. And in the safe room, the terrorists tried getting in, they couldn't get in. They tried throwing an RPG through the door, it didn't go through. So they went to the back, to the window, they made a tiny hole, and they started shooting through the hole. The mother was killed, the son was killed. The father was shot in the leg, bleeding heavily. The daughter just stood there, tight, trying to stop the bleeding. She and her father survived, and he's critically injured right now, wounded, but he's alive because of his daughter. These are just a few stories that we saw. It was a lot. Before we left, we said Kaddish. Really not for them. These people are the holiest people, Kedoshim, that died, Al Kiddush Hashem. The Gemara says there's nobody higher, nobody holier than someone that dies Al Kiddush Hashem. But we said a Kaddish, I think, more for us, more to remind ourselves our job here of lifting the name of God, of making a Kiddush Hashem, of realizing that now we have to step up and be more Jewish. We have to step up and be more Shomer Shabbat. We have to step up and be more Shomer Kashrut. And we said Tehillim, we sang a prayer. And then we left the kibbutz, we went out to the barbecue, and somehow we were now expected to smile and dance, where we hosted a barbecue for the soldiers. I think there were 350 soldiers, so that's a lot of food, but we were happy to do it. We sat there, we sang with them, we gave them letters from children, again, from our schools over here, people that handed me letters to give them from their children. And the letters, by the way, more than anything, was what moved them. The families that lost children, the soldiers themselves, these are big men, and they're laughing and smiling, and the moment we gave them a letter from a little kid, they started crying, they crumbled. They were so moved to see that little kid overseas, was just taking time. And what are they writing? We're thinking about you, thank you. One kid wrote, he was, innocent. He said, please make sure the war doesn't go to Tel Aviv. My uncle lives in Tel Aviv. And just these are real holy children, just, thanking the soldiers from the bottom of their hearts. This was the barbecue. And this was Sunday, very jam-packed day, loaded day. And then Monday, that's it. Monday we checked out. We went to make packages. We packaged food, sandwiches, with the Chabad over there in Jerusalem. The sandwiches go to soldiers. They go to children in schools. They go to the families in the yishuvim, in the hotels that are displaced. They're not getting food. They're getting a place to stay. They don't get food. So we made sandwiches, tuna and hummus and chocolate, right? The chocolate spread, choco spread, right? We made packages. We gave them the cherry tomatoes that we harvested the day before to put in the packages. And then the last stop was we went to the hospital, Tel HaShomer Hospital in Tel Aviv, where we met injured soldiers in rehab. And it was, again, they were very appreciative. They were in tears that we came, that we left everything, that we went there just to show them that we are with them, that we care about them, that we're thinking about them. We gave them letters as well. And this is just like a quick summary of what we did. And I think just to summarize in one sentence, we go to Israel, and we often, many of us listening have been to Israel, and when we go to Israel, we usually see the places in Israel. But on this trip, my friends, we got to see the people of Israel. And we saw a diverse group of people. We saw many different colors and types of people, different types of Jews that maybe you wouldn't always see when you go on a trip to Israel. Usually you go and you stick with people from one type, whether you're from this side or that side or in between. Those are the people that you visit. But here we saw everyone and everything in between. And we realized that there's a holiness, there's a beauty, there's a kedusha. This guy that was taking us around in the kibbutz, he was not necessarily a religious guy in Kibbutz Be'eri. He wasn't a religious guy. But he was there, and when we said Kaddish, he started crying. He grabbed his thing. He just to put something on his head. He understood these ideas. There's just beauty in everybody, and we need to see that. We need to be able to stop judging, to stop labeling, to realize that Am Yisrael was never meant to be one color or one shade. There are so many different types, so many different shvatim. Doesn't mean that I have to now marry your daughter, or that we have to. Doesn't mean that we have to now pray in the same minyan. It's okay. We could think differently. We could have different values, but to accept someone else for being different, not to judge, to realize there's beauty, that we're diverse, that we're heroes. We're all fighting different fight, but we're all fighting, and we all have that common thread in between us, and we can put aside the differences. This is what I think Beyachad Nenatzeach means. And I think this is what really Yaakov Avinu saw in his dream. When he went to sleep and he saw the ladder, and it says that he slept that night. But Laila Hahu, night represents always darkness, represents Galut, represents evil. And in the beginning of his sleep, Chazal tell us that he had 12 stones that he put under his head. And they were all fighting. They all wanted to be the rock that Yaakov put his head on. But at the end of the night, they became one rock. And I think our job to become one, to realize that his head's not on your rock or on your rock. We're all one rock. And if you win, I win. And if your organization does chesed, my organization is also doing chesed, we're both winners. And it's not me or you in the competition, my friends. The competition just has to stop. We have to realize that we're a team. And one person's success is not someone else's failure, but the opposite. Your success is my success. And when we could see that, when we could become one rock, then that's how we get out of this galut. That's how we get out of this exile. We should be zoche to see geulah, redemption. The hostages, that's a whole nother side that we didn't get to see. We wanted to meet families of hostages, but because they were coming home in the days that we were there, so all of those plans on the itinerary had to be canceled. It was a very sensitive time for the families going to Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. All of these things we couldn't do because of that. But Baruch Hashem, they're home. The ones that did come home, we should continue to pray and see Yeshuot for all the hostages. We should not have to hear of any more soldiers that were fallen, no more families mourning. Besorot Tovot, Geula Shlema, Bezat Hashem, for all of Am Yisrael. Have a wonderful day.